This guy has Trump derangement syndrome. He needs to get, you're a failed politician.
Gentlemen,
You need to
I
get
want
on
you to
these
watch the
matters.
video.
Mr. Chairman, please restore his time and remind the witness of the rules here.
September 14th, 2023, 6:47 a.m., Nogales, Arizona. Federal agents surrounded a nondescript warehouse facility on the outskirts of town. The building looked legitimate. Steel construction, modern loading docks, proper signage identifying it as a logistics company. Trucks came and went with clockwork regularity. The business had operated for 3 years without incident. Inside, special agents moved through corridors lined with shipping containers. Standard freight operations. Manifests matched cargo. Documentation appeared clean. Then they opened container C-447. Hidden behind legitimate automotive parts sat 847 kilograms of fentanyl. Street value, $42 million. But this wasn't a drug bust. This was something far worse. The warehouse was owned by a serving ICE deportation officer. The discovery that changed everything. Agent Rodriguez had been investigating cross-border smuggling routes for 18 months. Standard narcotics interdiction work. Following money trails, tracking shell companies. The investigation focused on how the Sinaloa Cartel moved product through legitimate commercial channels. One name kept appearing in financial records. Samuel Torres, age 34. ICE deportation officer stationed at the Nogales port of entry. 10-year veteran, exemplary service record, security clearances, access to detention facilities, border crossing schedules, and enforcement databases. He was also the registered owner of Frontera Logistics, LLC. The company processed approximately $380 million in cross-border freight transactions over 3 years, much of it legitimate. Automotive parts from Mexican manufacturing plants, agricultural products, consumer goods, the perfect cover. But buried within shipping manifests, investigators found discrepancies. Containers listed as carrying machine parts weighed too much. Shipments declared at $50,000 contained goods worth $5,000. The mathematics didn't work. Chi began tracking specific containers, installing GPS devices, monitoring delivery routes. What they discovered revealed systematic exploitation of the officer's position. Torres used his ICE credentials to expedite container inspections at the port. He personally flagged certain shipments for priority processing. These containers moved through customs in under 2 hours. No secondary inspections, no drug dog sweeps, no cargo examination beyond paperwork review. Inside these expedited containers, fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin. The architecture of corruption. Torres didn't work alone. The investigation eventually identified 17 co-conspirators. This wasn't freelance corruption. This was organized infrastructure. Maria Castillo, a customs broker with 20 years experience, prepared fraudulent documentation. Her paperwork transformed drug shipments into legitimate commerce. Invoices matched real companies. Product descriptions aligned with tariff codes. Everything appeared routine to cursory examination. The documents were immaculate forgeries. They referenced actual purchase orders from legitimate buyers, then substituted container numbers. The real automotive parts went to Ford dealerships in Phoenix. The narcotics went to distribution networks in Los Angeles, Denver, and Chicago. Miguel Santos ran the physical logistics. He managed a fleet of 17 commercial trucks. The vehicles had proper DOT registrations, maintained inspection schedules, and operated under valid commercial licenses. Drivers possessed clean records. Background checks revealed nothing. But Santos controlled the routing. He determined which distribution centers received which containers. Legitimate freight went to documented destinations. Cartel shipments diverted to warehouse facilities controlled by the organization. Investigators found Santos maintained 2 sets of route logs. One for regulatory compliance. One tracking actual deliveries. The real logs used coded language. Automotive parts meant fentanyl. Agricultural supplies indicated methamphetamine. Machine components signified cocaine. The financial structure proved equally sophisticated. Frontera Logistics operated as a registered LLC with proper tax filings. The company paid state and federal taxes on legitimate freight revenue. It maintained business insurance. It submitted quarterly reports. But parallel accounting systems tracked cartel revenue. Wire transfers moved through 17 different bank accounts across 4 states. Shell companies in Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming created layers of financial obfuscation. Money laundering operations transformed drug proceeds into legitimate business assets. Torres personally received $4.3 million over 3 years. Monthly payments of $125,000 arrived through contractor agreements for security consulting services. The income appeared legitimate on surface examination. He filed tax returns, made mortgage payments, lived modestly relative to his actual wealth. He was hiding in plain sight. The system within the system. What made this operation particularly dangerous was Torres' exploitation of institutional access. As a deportation officer, he possessed security clearances, granting him entry to sensitive databases and facilities. He knew enforcement schedules. He understood inspection protocols. He received advance notification of interdiction operations. This information flowed directly to cartel leadership. When CBP planned enhanced inspection operations at specific border crossings, Torres warned his contacts. Cartel shipments rerouted to alternative entry points. When DIA conducted surveillance on known trafficking routes, Torres provided detailed operational timelines. Smugglers adjusted schedules accordingly. Investigators discovered Torres accessed law enforcement databases 847 times over 18 months for queries unrelated to his official duties. He searched criminal records for cartel associates. He pulled border crossing histories for smugglers. He reviewed active investigation files. Each search represented a security compromise. Each database query potentially exposed ongoing operations. Federal agents working undercover cases faced increased danger because Torres provided their cover identities to organized crime. The betrayal extended beyond drug trafficking. Torres used his detention facility access to identify deportation targets valuable to cartel operations. He alerted smugglers when specific individuals faced removal proceedings. The cartel extracted these people from detention centers or intercepted them post-deportation in Mexico. 3 individuals Torres identified subsequently disappeared after deportation. Their families reported them missing. Mexican authorities found no trace. The investigation suggests they were murdered by cartel enforcers concerned about cooperation with U.S. law enforcement. Torres' position allowed him to corrupt the system from within. He transformed law enforcement infrastructure into criminal enterprise support. Every security protocol, every database, every enforcement mechanism became a tool serving organized crime rather than public safety. The takedown. September 14, 2023 marked the culmination of coordinated federal operations across 5 states. Schwei, FBI, and DEA executed simultaneous raids targeting the entire network. Over 200 agents participated in the operation. Torres was arrested at his home in Nogales at 6:15 a.m. Agents found $340,000 in cash hidden in his garage, along with documents detailing payment schedules and shipment manifests. His personal computer contained encrypted communications with cartel leadership spanning 3 years. Castillo was apprehended at the border crossing as she arrived for work. Her office files contained templates for fraudulent customs documentation, along with client lists identifying over 40 businesses used as cartel fronts. Santos attempted to flee when agents arrived at his trucking depot. He was apprehended 17 minutes later at a gas station 3 miles away. His phone contained GP's coordinates for 23 different stash houses across the southwestern United States. Investigators seized $8.4 million in cash from various locations. They recovered 1,847 kilograms of fentanyl, 643 kilograms of methamphetamine, 284 kilograms of cocaine, and 126 kilograms of heroin. Total narcotics value exceeded $180 million. They also seized 17 commercial trucks, 4 warehouses, and froze assets in 23 bank accounts across multiple states. The operational documentation proved devastating for the cartel. Seized records identified distribution networks, money laundering operations, and corrupt officials in 3 countries. The intelligence generated hundreds of follow-up investigations. The Reckoning. U.S. Attorney Jennifer Martinez addressed the media 3 days after the arrests. Her statement carried the weight of institutional betrayal. Samuel Torres swore an oath to protect this nation's borders. Instead, he sold his badge to the highest bidder. He transformed law enforcement tools into weapons against public safety. He facilitated the importation of poison that has killed thousands of Americans. His actions represent the most serious form of corruption, the corruption of those entrusted with our security. The charges were comprehensive: conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, money laundering, racketeering, bribery, honest services fraud, making false statements, conspiracy to commit murder. Each count carried severe sentencing guidelines. Federal prosecutors emphasized the murder conspiracy charges. Evidence suggested Torres provided information that directly led to the killings of 3 individuals in Mexico. While he didn't pull the trigger, his intelligence made him culpable under federal conspiracy statutes. Torres faced a mandatory minimum of 20 years, maximum sentence, life imprisonment without parole. The investigation revealed he had been communicating with Sinaloa Cartel leadership for 4 years, beginning even before establishing Frontera Logistics. The relationship started small, overlooking minor infractions at border crossings for $5,000 payments. It escalated into full-scale trafficking infrastructure. Castillo received 17 years after cooperating with investigators. Her testimony provided crucial evidence about documentation procedures and identified additional corrupt officials. Santos received 23 years. The remaining 14 co-conspirators received sentences ranging from 8 to 19 years. Torres ultimately pleaded guilty to avoid trial. He received 35 years in federal prison, no parole. Asset forfeiture, totaling $4.3 million. At sentencing, Judge Robert Chen delivered a statement that captured the gravity of institutional betrayal. "You didn't just break the law, you broke faith with every honest law enforcement officer serving this nation. You transformed trust into currency and sold it to our enemies. The badge you wore became a tool of organized crime. Your actions have consequences beyond this courtroom. They undermine public confidence in institutions that protect our security." The aftermath and the warning. The Torres case exposed vulnerabilities within federal law enforcement that extend beyond individual corruption. It demonstrated how insider threats can transform security infrastructure into criminal assets, how trusted positions enable systematic exploitation, how corruption at key nodes compromises entire systems. DAGE launched comprehensive security reviews at all southwestern border stations. They implemented enhanced background checks for personnel with database access. They established new monitoring protocols for customs processing. They created redundant oversight mechanisms designed to flag unusual access patterns. But structural reforms cannot eliminate human corruption. They can only make it harder to sustain. The investigation continues. Seized documents identify dozens of additional suspects. Names of other potentially compromised officials appear in encrypted communications. The full scope of cartel infiltration into U.S. law enforcement remains unknown. Federal authorities increased resources for internal affairs investigations at border agencies. They established anonymous reporting mechanisms for suspicious colleague behavior. They enhanced financial disclosure requirements for officers with security clearances. Yet the Torres case raises uncomfortable questions about systemic vulnerability. How many other officers have been compromised? How much cartel intelligence derives from corrupt insiders? How many operations have been compromised by moles within law enforcement? The answers remain elusive. What is certain, the Sinaloa Cartel and other organized crime groups actively target law enforcement personnel for recruitment. They identify officers with financial problems, personal vulnerabilities, or ideological motivations. They offer money, protection, or other inducements. They build relationships slowly, starting with minor infractions that create leverage for future demands. Torres started by accepting $5,000 to overlook a vehicle with minor documentation issues. 4 years later, he was facilitating multi-ton narcotics shipments that killed Americans. The progression from minor compromise to major criminality follows a predictable pattern. Small corruptions create psychological permission for larger ones. Initial payments establish financial dependence that makes future cooperation feel necessary. Each successful operation builds confidence and reduces perceived risk. This is how institutional corruption metastasizes. One compromised officer at a crucial choke point can enable billions of dollars in criminal enterprise. One insider with database access can compromise dozens of investigations. One corrupted badge can undermine entire enforcement frameworks. The war against organized crime requires securing the institutions fighting it. Internal threats pose dangers as significant as external ones. The Torres case proves that cartel infiltration of U.S. law enforcement is not theoretical. It's operational, systematic, and ongoing. Vigilance demands looking inward as much as outward. Trust must be verified constantly. Access must be monitored relentlessly. No position should be immune from scrutiny, because the next Samuel Torres might be processing containers at a port of entry right now. The next Maria Castillo might be filing customs documents this morning. The next cartel mole might be wearing a federal badge today. The question isn't whether organized crime will attempt to compromise law enforcement. The question is whether we'll detect them before they enable the next $380 million criminal enterprise.